Hey, what's up guys? It's Myth, and I'm here to teach you how to build better in Fortnite. So building in Fortnite is something that is pretty unique to Fortnite specifically. It hasn't really been done or seen before in any shooter or battle royale game, or really any game in general. And I think like one of the biggest things that makes a good builder is just knowing when to use certain techniques over others in certain scenarios. It's kind of like playing cards in a strategy game, or playing certain chess pieces in a chess game. You want to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time, or else you'll have negative consequences against your opponents if you don't take the right course of action. And then on top of that, you have defensive building, you have offensive building, and then you have editing that also has sort of the same principles. So the building system is actually a lot more depthy than it seems to be if you're just getting into the game and it's your first time hopping in. I remember like earlier on in the community when it was everybody's first time playing and there were no guides or rules on how to build or videos teaching you how. Everybody was just not building because they didn't know exactly what it meant or was at the time. So it was definitely something that shook up a lot of people's perspective, and it changes the way you play the game, and that's why I'm here to teach you how to do it. All right, so we're gonna hop into creative, and basically this is gonna be your basically gonna be your environment for you practicing and learning how to build things. And I think we're gonna start off with something that's fairly basic. It's gonna be a single ramp rush. So yeah, for the single ramp rush, what you're gonna wanna do is stair and the floor wall, and it's basically just that all over again. And here's me doing a little bit slower. If you need to start off slower on doing any of these builds, don't feel bad. Everyone starts off doing them a little bit slower initially, and it's part of the process of learning. You're not gonna be able to just full sprint, and you might get yourself aggravated initially trying to just full sprint it. So honestly, just take your time, and even if you need to stop in between, you'll build that muscle memory until you could actually do it properly. So as you could see, what this one does actually, ooh, almost died of fall damage there, is it basically protects your stair from any people that you're charging forward against. So if you're trying to take height over somebody and you realize they start shooting you, this is basically the rush that you want to use against them, because it will prevent them from shooting your stairs. It'll give you a little bit more time than just doing a basic like ramp rush. And I want to dive into which keys I'm pressing though this time to do this one. So the first thing I start off with is C, and then I use a mouse bind on my mouse for floors, and then I'm using Q for walls. And it's basically just that over and over again. You go C, mouse bind walls, C, mouse bind Q, C, mouse bind Q. And you just constantly do that. And you can practice this. This is what I would like to say, this is the new fundamental build strat. And you could also double down on this one. There's an advanced version of this strat specifically, which is basically the double ramp rush. So you're doing the same thing with the binds. The only thing you're doing that's differently is you're trying to build for both of them while running in the middle essentially. So as you could see, I'm sort of shaking my mouse in between so that I'm making sure that I'm getting the stairs, the floors, and the walls. As you could see, I'm getting the ramps and the floors and the walls for both of these, which gives you an even greater amount of coverage than this one, which is just a single one, because now they gotta shoot through 2 layers of protection on 2 different stairs to take out your builds. So those were ramp rushes, and I think I want to show you guys 90s, which are pretty important. If you've been part of the Fortnite community for a little bit, you would know that there's cranking 90s meme. You gotta crank your 90s. And 90s are sort of like a work of art for competitive Fortnite players, because there are a lot of different ways to do them, and none of them are necessarily wrong or right. And it really is about what you're trying to accomplish. So I guess the first thing I'm gonna show you is a defensive 90. A 90 that provides a little bit more cover for your builds, for your structures, and for your character itself. and then I'm gonna show you a non-protective 90, or a speed 90, I guess is what you could call it. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna perform a defensive 90 real quick for you, and then I'll break it down essentially. Ooh, floored myself. All right, so that was a 90. And I think you could understand or start to understand the reason why they're called a 90 is simply because you're going in 90 degrees every time you place a stair. You're going 90, 90, 90. So as you can see here, it's a lot more boxed up, defensive. Don't mind that, that's me coming down. And allows for a lot more cover for your builds than if you were to do the speed 90, which I'll show you in comparison later. But to break down the 90, essentially, I think the players have a lot of difficulty doing 90s because they don't understand the rhythm that you're supposed to have, essentially. But what I do basically is, as I'm doing the 90, I'm never letting go of the W key, and I'm never touching A or D. That might be a me thing specifically, but I realized that that's something that really helps with my rhythm. And another thing is that you don't really want to take a break. It should be a smooth motion. So I see a lot of players sort of do this, and then they do the other one, and then they wonder why their 90s are so slow. But it's really all about just knocking them all out in a nice smooth motion. You want to pace them out basically. And honestly, once you start to do your 90s, you'll realize that you'll have a rhythm that you could even hear if you're doing your 90s without your headset, that you become accustomed to. And once you get that, it's basically, you know how to do your 90s right. I'm gonna show you exactly how I do them with my keybinds and walk you through it step by step. So the first thing you wanna do is just place a ramp, and then as you place your ramp, you're gonna transition to walls, which is my cue. And then you're gonna wanna place one to the left, to the right. Then you wanna jump, stair floor, or floor stair, sorry. Then you're basically gonna do the same thing for the next two. And since jump fatigue is a thing in Fortnite, you could only do 3 in a row before you'd be able to do a fourth one. So after you do your third one, you're gonna need to build one ramp out just to reset your jump fatigue, and then do them all over again. And like I said, it's wall in front of you, wall to the right, floor stair. As you do them faster, you won't have to worry about placing a floor over your head or anything. Just turbo building, and me doing them slower causes that at times when I'm not doing them at the right pacing. There you go. And then just like that, you basically be able to do your 90s. And some people also, so another thing is you want to make sure you look down so that you're placing your floor so it doesn't place over your head. And then that's basically the 90, the defensive 90. I'm gonna show it one more time. You see my character sort of auto-aligns itself with the wall to the left of him, and it plays out pretty well, where I don't need to do anything. I just need to worry about building. And now I'm going to do a speed 90. Speed 90, essentially, you're trying to do the same thing, you're just trying to do it fast. And it's, in my opinion, a lot easier than a cranking 90, than a defensive 90, where you're sort of moving your mouse in a circular rotation. This one's a lot more up and down action. And I'll show you that real quick. I'll demonstrate it real quick. I'm able to build my 90s a lot faster in this one than if I were to do them in the defensive way. So these work really well when you're trying to just go up against an opponent that's building up as well, because it allows you to just get up there as fast as you can. And as you could see, with the way they look compared to the normal 90s, there's a lot less layers that your opponent would have to shoot through if they were trying to shoot through you. So see the 90s, there's all the floors and there's walls on multiple sides, but typically there's always going to be an exposed side on one layer. There would be one layer with 2 walls, but then there's going to be an exposed layer, always. 2 exposed layers in between the 3. because of the way that you're doing them. There's a turning point at the time, and then that turning point's gone, so it's going to expose your stairs a little bit more, and it will actually cause you. It creates a big weak point if you're going up against someone that's trying to shoot you. It's like, I would never use this if somebody's like actively shooting at you, because they'll just take you down. You're going to be doing your 90s for no reason. Like I said, it's really good when building up against an opponent that's also building and not focused on shooting you out. But now I'll take you through what it takes to do this one. So once again, stairs, which is my C. And then I'm going to want to hit Q. And then as I place this lower one, I'm going to flick up to place the one above it. And then I'm going to flick back down and then go floor and stair. And as I do that, so my floor is on my mouse button, and then my stair is also on C. And then right as soon as I place the stair, I'm going to want to go back to wall and then flick to the right and then do the same thing. But you want to do it basically like right as soon as you get on your stair, so it looks something more like this. Makes it a lot snappier, a lot faster to do. Okay, since I showed you guys a few of the 90 techniques and ramp rush techniques, I think I want to show you a few high ground retake techniques. So I think the two biggest ones that are used nowadays are the double ramp 180, the basic, and then I'll show you an advanced version. That's essentially a pyramid 180. All right, so to do this one, essentially what you're going to want to do is have your double ramp rush going, which is literally just you placing a ramp above you and a ramp below you. And what this does is it covers your head when an opponent's trying to fire at you. Like let's say somebody is, around here and they're trying to shoot you out. They're gonna have to go through this layer before they can get through the one below. And what you wanna do though is you wanna come up here and either A, do a 90, you could do them into 90s, which is also good, or you could straight up just completely 180 it. And so as you learn with 90s, when somebody's shooting at you, when you're doing this, you're gonna wanna do a defensive 90 instead of doing something like this. But with that, you could also just do a 180 and get back towards that direction a lot faster than doing a 90 if you wanted to, if you're not necessarily worried about gaining height, more so worried about just firing back at your opponent as fast as you can. So you come up here, you want to place your walls first, and then your floor, then your stairs, and you're good. You can fire back whatever opponent is trying to take you. And then on top of that, you could also just start building in the other direction with a single ramp rush. Or maybe bust in some 90s into it. As you can see, building is all about, like I said, using the right technique at the right time, sort of like chess, using the right piece in the right place and time. So it's definitely, comboing a lot of the things that I'm going to be teaching you is a big part of what makes a good builder, in my opinion. Knowing when to use them and knowing when to use the right combos and whatnot to execute whatever situation you're trying to get yourself out of is super important. And now I'm going to show you the pyramid version, essentially, where you're going to want to take a pyramid and you'll pyramid yourself off, but you will hopefully confuse your opponent, and then you'll hop off the side of the pyramid and then try to retake high ground or go another direction. So it's something super fluid. It's not really, it's meant to sort of disorient your opponent more than it is to, I guess, retake high ground. But in the hopes of confusing your opponent, you will have an opportunity to take that. So I'll show you that right now. There we go. There we go. There it is. So as you can see, what I did there is I placed the pyramid to hopefully, tell my opponent that I'm not trying to be aggressive right now. I'm not trying to push up real much. But in reality, I'm doing a 180, but it's basically off to the side. So I hop off to the side of my pyramid, place a floor, a stair, position my body so I don't phase underneath the stair. You want to position yourself basically like right here is the sweet spot. So you want a floor, stair, and then wall, and then you could go ahead and do 90s again, or you could do a ramp rush. You can even bust out a double ramp rush if you wish. A lot of things you could do after that, but this is basically a fundamental step in a lot of people's build styles. This is something that they do often. And now I'm going to do it a little bit slower so that you could sort of see what's happening, understand where I'm jumping and how I'm jumping. So as you see, you do double ramp. That really shouldn't be difficult for anyone to do. And you're gonna wanna like just scoop underneath your pyramid and then jump. And I think like it's really hard for me to approximate it because I'm not used to playing on native, but it's something recently. But I'd say about right here is when you want to jump, and then you basically want to hold on W and you know, twirl your body around so that you could start building in the other direction, in the 180 direction. There you go. As you see, I landed basically in the same spot that I said to earlier. And that's gonna give you the perfect spot. It's gonna put you above your floor, it's gonna put you above your stair, and then it's gonna allow you to instantly go back into action against whoever you're going up against, which is really good. So this is a technique used by, I would say, the entire pro community, and it's definitely worth learning. It's a little bit more advanced than your typical, you know, 180 stair turnaround or high ground take. And now, I think which will be one of the final things are, actually there's an aggressive edit and then there's a defensive edit. So the first one is fairly simple to do, and we're gonna start off with the aggressive edit. They're kind of both aggressive, but one is used so that you don't take shots and one is used so that you take shots on your opponent. If you are building up doing your stairs and you realize that you got an opponent underneath you, you're gonna wanna edit your stairs, which is my F key. You're gonna hit F, then you're gonna wanna get this back line, and then you're gonna wanna do the edit again on your floor, and then remove it, and then it'll give you an opportunity to shoot at the opponent that you got underneath your ramp rush, if they were building as well. So essentially, it creates this situation. I guess I'll build another rush over here. So let's say you're building up and your opponent is right here, but you notice that he kind of built short. That's something that you're gonna wanna pay attention to is where your opponents end up when build fighting, anybody really. Let's say they ended up below you, and you know that, so you're like, okay, wait a minute. You get down there real quick, and you are able to get a nice shot off on him before he's even able to react to anything. And it doesn't necessarily matter the way that you edit your stair. Like as you see there, I didn't go for this back line or the double floor edit. All that matters is that you get through there and you pump your opponent as fast as possible so that you can catch them off guard. So it's super, super basic to do. It's something you could practice over and over again, really, with no ease. I think it's just about getting that edit speed down. And something that I would just practice is doing it right after you build your ramp rush. And there's also a few things in creative. There's like edit courses and whatnot, where you could go and actually practice these things. Like people set up courses, and essentially all you need to do is go through them and edit through them. And this will definitely help. That will definitely help you with getting your edits to a point that's really clean. And that's that one. And then you have the more defensive edit, I suppose, which I will show you now. And it's gonna allow you to block bullets from somebody that is above you, hopefully. And there are sort of like two ways of doing it as well. There's a more basic way, and then there's a more advanced way. So I'm gonna show you the basic way real quick, which basically just involves you hitting C and then hitting E, which is your pyramid. Oh, yeah, E is my pyramid as well. So instead of doing floor stair and floor stair, or floor stair wall, you're not gonna be really worrying about that as much. This will most likely be just a single ramp, and then the only thing that you're gonna be switching about it is instead of doing a floor and wall, you're gonna wanna be doing a pyramid. And that pyramid basically allows you to cover anyone that's shooting from you from up above. And then you're gonna wanna edit through that pyramid and then place another floor. So you wanna breach and then place another floor. So doing it really slow, it should look like this. What this is doing basically, it's making it really difficult for whoever is above you to shoot you. Because they're most likely going to be shooting that pyramid. And then there's a more advanced version of doing it that involves a floor as well for a little bit more protection. And also, it prevents, in the middle of a build fight, if you're doing that as well with the floor, it'll prevent anyone from placing a floor underneath your cone to then, that will block you off from editing through it. So I'll show you guys that now in full speed. And as you see there on the last few, I actually did them just back to back. This is kind of what you're aiming for. You're not aiming to do one in between each gap because you want to have as much cover as you can. So these ones are actually going to be what your goal is essentially while doing this. And then these ones are sort of like your intermediate. You could do these just sort of like warming up to doing them back to back to back. Just put a little gap between them, and until you get comfortable doing that, then you want to go for these ones where it's immediately after the other, because that's going to give you the most protection against your opponent. I think that's pretty much it. You practice these in Playground. You do some creative edit courses. I guess I'll show you some of those. And yeah, so you can find basically any of these online. This is just the one that I use personally. I made one for myself. I actually suggest people to make one for themselves as well, because it allows you to sort of like focus on your strengths and your weaknesses, more so on your weaknesses. And essentially what these are just little maps that allow you to practice all these beginner skills or all these advanced or intermediate skills. So you see, you just start the game and then you go about it. You can even time yourself. There's a little timer. And I guess I'll go through my edit course real quick and show you how it's done. So as you can see, I'm doing right 90s, left 90s, back to right 90s, and then back to lefts, and then there's even wall edits. And all this is going to help your muscle memory, because at the end of the day, that's the majority of what building is. It's just sort of strengthening that muscle memory for you and developing or finding out ways to use that muscle memory in certain situations. Just like I showed you earlier, you know, editing down from that, this is something that super focuses on that. And then, you know, pyramid jumps, like I showed you earlier, this is something that sort of allows you to focus on that positioning properly. And I'm haunted by this now because I'm playing on native and don't know how to do it anymore. This is it's all to build your muscle memory, and then more wall edits and whatnot. And this is all really basic stuff that will really improve your late game performances when you're sort of like editing through builds and trying to navigate through things in a very like short amount of time. There's many times where you like, as a player, all players have done it, where they've like choked at doing certain builds or certain edits. And literally that could be life or death in a situation, and that's something you want to work on at all times. And there we are. So yeah, edit courses, really good thing that could help you build that muscle memory for a lot of different techniques. And a lot of the techniques that I showed you today, obviously, as you see, right in here as well. So obviously, learning anything new is going to be a very difficult process. And I think with Fortnite specifically, it was one of those, with Fortnite and its building, it's one of those things that's really cool when you look at some other people do it, and it looks very possible. You know, you understand every little thing that they're doing. You understand that they're placing a wall, you understand that they're placing a floor, you understand that they're placing a stair, but it's all about like it coming together, you know? Like I like to look at Fortnite as dancing. Like it's something that you look at and you're like, okay, I could comprehend that. But then when you go to do it, you suck. And that's just gonna be the natural process. It's nothing to get angry over. It's all about just pacing yourself and giving yourself time to learn. So if you go into a game and you do something wrong, recognize that you're doing something wrong. Don't beat yourself up over it and just keep playing, you know? I think that's the biggest part about it, is just constantly and just going into it with a good attitude and like I said, simply said, you know, just keep playing. It's not gonna hurt you.